Hello again. In this video, I'm going to go over this homework problem from 3.4. And in this problem, we're supposed to find the derivative of y with respect to x if y is equal to 12x squared minus 24x plus 24 times e to the x. Now, if we're going to take the derivative of this function, we're going to have to use the product rule, because notice that you have a product, this function that y is equal to is actually the product of two functions. The first function here we're going to think of as f times the second function, which we're going to call g. And so the product rule says that if you take the derivative of f times g, a function times another one, then it's the first function, which is f, times the derivative of the second function, g prime, plus the second function, which is g, times the derivative of the first function, which is f prime. Okay, so let's find the derivative using the product rule. Okay, so the derivative of y with respect to x is the first function, or f of x, and that's just the 12x squared minus 24x plus 24. Okay, times the derivative of the second function, where the second function is e to the x. Now the derivative of e to the x is e to the x. So it's going to be times e to the x. Okay, and then plus now the second function times the derivative of the first one. Okay, so then the second function is e to the x, and then times the derivative of the first function, f prime, and that's the derivative of this piece here. And then I'm gonna figure that out on the side, okay? But the derivative of that first function. Okay, and so that basically when you use the product rule, you have to fill in those four pieces. Okay, and we pretty much have all those four pieces filled in, right? We have the first function times the derivative of the second one, and now we have the second function plus the second function times the derivative of the first function. And I'm going to figure that out on the side over here. Okay, so to find the derivative of this function here, there's rules that you can use for derivatives. One of the rules says that you can break up derivatives across subtraction and addition. So I can write this derivative as the derivative of each of these individually, and then add it or subtract it as appropriate. Okay, so it's the same as the derivative of 12x squared, and then minus the derivative of 24x. And then plus the derivative of 24. Okay, so you're allowed to break up derivatives across subtraction and addition. Okay, and then you're allowed to pull constants outside the derivative operator. So this first one, I can pull the 12 outside the derivative operator, since 12 is a constant. Okay, so the derivative of 12x squared is the same as 12 times the derivative of x squared. Okay, and then minus the derivative, I can do the same thing here. I can pull the 24 out front because it's a constant out front of the derivative operator. And so the derivative of 24x is the same as 24 times the derivative of x. And then this last piece, you're taking the derivative of a constant. The derivative of a constant is 0. So plus 0. Okay, and then we're just going to use we have to find the derivative of x squared, and we can use the power rule to find that derivative. So the power rule basically would say you take this exponent, which is a 2, and you actually multiply the 2 in front. So you get 2x, and then you subtract 1 from the exponent, so it becomes 2x to the first power. And you don't really need to write the 1 there. You could just write it as x, but it would be to the first power. Okay, and then you still have this 12 in front, so then that gets all that gets multiplied by 12. Okay, minus 24 times whatever the derivative of x is, and you want to think of this as being x to the first power, and that way you could apply the power rule to this as well. So the 1 would come down in front, and you would multiply that by the x, so times 1. And then you would say x to the 0 power because you have to subtract 1 from the exponent. Okay? But x to the 0 power is 1. So this entire thing is just negative 24 times 1, which of course is just negative 24. Okay? And then the very first piece, of course, is 24x. So you get 24x minus 24. Okay, so that's the derivative of the first function. Okay, the derivative there. Okay, and that gets multiplied by e to the x. And then, of course, you still have this first part. And what you want to do here is, of course, distribute the e to the x to all three terms. So let's write that out. So you get 12x squared times e to the x. And then distribute it to the second one, you get 24x times e to the x. And then the last one, you get 24 times e to the x. Okay, so now we have a whole bunch of terms here. The last part here, we should also distribute the e to the x to both of those. So let's write out the first piece here, 12x squared times e to the x minus 24x times e to the x plus 24 times e to the x. And then let's distribute this e to the x to both of these terms here. Okay, so you get 24x times e to the x minus 24 times e to the x, because you have to distribute it to that second piece as well. Okay, so you end up with, it looks like 6 or 5 terms, and let's just see if any of these cancel. So here you have a plus 24 e to the x, and then minus 24 e to the x. So those will cancel out because they're like terms. And then notice here you have negative 24 x e to the x, and that cancels out with the positive 24x e to the x because those are like terms as well. So those cancel out. And you're just left with 12x squared times e to the x. Okay, and you can see that that is the correct answer. Okay, so basically for this particular problem, you have to use the product rule. And in using the product rule, you do have to know the derivative of e to the x, which is, of course, is just e to the x. And then when you take the derivative of the first piece, you just have to know your individual rules for derivatives. Like this rule here is you can break it up, the derivative operator, you can break it up across addition and subtraction. You're allowed to pull constants outside the derivative operator. And then we applied the power rule to find the derivative of x squared and the derivative of x. And then, of course, you also need to know that the derivative of a constant, like the derivative of 24, is 0. Okay, and then once you've done all that, you just plug everything into the product rule, and then you can see some things cancel out after you distributed, and you're just left with 12x squared times e to the x. Okay, so hopefully you found this video helpful, and I'll continue to do some problems in Chapter 3, and hopefully you'll get a chance to look at some of those as well. Okay, bye-bye.